Armada Book 3 Chapter 1 The Festival Part 1. July 2060. At Andrew's Bridge, Andrew announced, "Guys, I want to go straight home. If you want to leave midway, you are more than welcome to do so." They have been traveling for 10 days now and they were all pretty rested and anxious about heading home. For Andrew it was the longest continuous deployment he had ever experienced. Tonin replied, "I'll leave as soon as we reach the middle galaxies." Gantley chimed in, "When we reach the turn nearest to the Mac galaxies tomorrow, I will leave you guys and head home. I will just park my ships near the Mac capital and go to Earth to rest. I will leave with Gantley." Billy added. Bhaskar looked at Gantley and said, "I will also leave with Gantley. Sooner or later we will probably stop doing this." Andrew sighed. Tonin disagreed, "There will always be tyrants and oppressors in the galaxies." "That's true. Layla's planet just stopped their war and the king was victorious as expected. Maybe it's time to pay him a visit." Eric added. He looked at Andrew who seemed to be in agreement. Roger explained, "There are also the Round-Eye Macs. It has always been a thorn on the Macs to have this tyranny exist amongst their midst. There are small pockets of planets that may have issues. We may not need to address them unless we see an absolute need to do so. I would prefer that the Marinti people concentrate on growing our civilization. There simply is too much to do in our own house," Bhaskar said. "So we will all see each other at Tony's wedding, right?" Andrew asked as he looked at the group and they all showed their agreement. He looked at Olive. "Andrew, tomorrow we will have 60% of our people back so the remaining 40% can go through the hops for their R&R. Olive responded. "Good, the report showed some of our ships were empty except for a few key technicians and the ship captains. None of my people left for any R&R. Ellie said. "But your people's idea of R&R is doing some other science work they like other than the ones they are assigned to," Tonin explained. "That may be true but not for all." Ellie countered. "I think your people should go and relax." Andrew said. "Most of them don't know how." Ellie answered. Andrew looked at Ellie, "To each his own. I am not going to push it." Andrew spent the next 2 weeks looking at reports from various sources. He found out that Timmy has formed the Interplanetary Council and they were on their way to forming a federation. He also started a simple sales taxation on all interspecies trade and leaving the Earth planet inhabitants tax-free. Andrew read that Edna's group have gone to meet with Manpat right after the Armada finished with Manpat's Datuan problem. They were able to study the Talonot commercial systems and were now implementing ways to connect them to the exchange network. They have delivered container vans full of ice cream, brandy and Bwufeng wines and Manpat paid them with gold. Now trade has increased tremendously with the other alien groups following Edna's moves. Then he read what Tony had done and intended to do with the 19,000 or so Tosban ships. "Olive, can you explain to me with some visuals what Tony's report is saying?" Olive produced a hologram on the left of Andrew. "Yes, Andrew. First, these red light shows how Tony deployed the Tosban hop ships in the Talonots, Datuans and Tosban galaxies. And these yellow lights show the hops tracing their paths to the different other alien galaxies. All of these lights represent a total of 980 Tosban ships. Some lines were duplicated but are awaiting the TPs. These duplicate lines are Tosban ships that are still being renovated by the Talonots." Olive produced another hologram in front to the right side of Andrew and this shows the Max, Inki and Marinti galaxies. These blue lights represent the direct lines from the Talonots to the Max to the Inkis and end up at the Marinti galaxies. These are triple lines from the Talonots to the Max and from the Max to the Inkis it becomes 10 lines. From the Inkis to the Marintis the lines are only triple. From the Mac and Inki galaxies there are 6 lines towards the Bofengs. Olive produced a hologram of the middle, the Norset galaxies, there are 10 lines going through the middle then to the Norsets then 5 lines towards the Bofengs here. Then there are 10 lines towards the Earth galaxies here. She showed the Earth and some of the off-world planets. "How many ships total will Tony use?" Andrew asked. "He will deploy a total of 11,855 Tosban ships. These ships may be in the positions they are supposed to be in but only these on Tosban side are working hop ships. Tony placed the ships in position while he renovated them. Almost all of these ships in all the galaxy groups are not cloaked. While they have linked communications the TP systems are all on manual mode. Only these portions are being renovated by the Talonots. Tony estimates all will be cloaked and operational in 2 months but renovation inside these ships will continue for the next 2 years. 2 months is a bit fast, don't you think, Olive? Tony intends to transfer the TPs and communications equipment from the present hop ships he has to the bigger Tosban ships." "I understand. So what happened to the rest or the 7,000 or so ships?" The council that Tony works with, composed of the affected alien groups, decided to allocate the balance to be used in the outer reaches of the sphere. The Earth group would have 1,000 ships and the other alien groups would have the same number. But then the alien groups calculated that there are already too many hops for the galaxies to use. Once the TPs and comm systems are transferred from the small ships to the big ships, there will be a surplus of small hop ships, and these are more suited to deploy in the outer reaches of the sphere. They basically release the ships to the alien groups to do whatever they like to do short of scrapping them. Albert decided to use the ships as interplanetary cargo ships, uncloaked and without TPs. But then the planets refused to use them because it is much better to use the hop ships. So as in all the other aliens, the ships were expected to be just sitting there. 2 years or so ago I wanted to have more ships. Now we have ships that we do not want to use. Times have really changed, Olive. Tony's report mentions the issue of cost. Nobody wants to spend money and time on something they do not need. Andrew read the reports on the TV series, and the production teams were able to launch the series, and they were doing weekly shows. The first 2 shows were introductory shows with focus on the main and secondary characters. The ratings on the first show was below average, even if Maria spent a lot to promote the series. The analysis is that the characters were not mainstream A-listers, and this was the major factor in the ratings. He also read the financial reports of the bank cooperatives that acted as investment houses for the off-world stockholders. They were still incredibly profitable. The asset base has grown to 150 times in a year. What's new with these banks was the increase in alien government money and introduction of alien money from resident alien citizens in the various planets. This pushed the capitalization to its present level. Then there were financial reports on companies the bank cooperatives set up in various planets. When Andrew saw these, he realized the commerce has now integrated the various galaxies. Andrew went through tons of information on the festival that will start in 2 weeks from his arrival. Just 1 week after Tony's wedding. The festival was a 10-day festival with a venue the size of a medium-sized city. There were several categories where the areas were interlaced with the other categories. One was for a science fair, a military fair, one for small and big business commerce, one was for arts and culture, one was for sports, one was for food and drinks, and one was for a continuous party. The continuous party took almost a third of the total area. It struck him as odd at first, but he realized the people would probably end up at the party after getting through the other areas. As he was going through a long list of reports to read, he saw a report from Ricky and Christy. He opened it and started to read. It was well written, probably by an old-timer who was probably a retired professional writer. Andrew thought it was a stroke of luck that the couple stumbled into him and Olive. Their operations now have an annual budget of $50 billion, and they were turning out more than 500,000 old-timers every month from more than 100 countries. Andrew sensed that this area of Earth society will be a security problem very soon. Old people cannot simply vanish. But he read the very touching and heartfelt assessment from Edna and Victor, and he agreed with them completely. In their executive statements they both talked of a gift. The old-timers were the gift to the human species. And this gift was the life they lived and all their experiences they now share with the world. Andrew felt the calm and openness in Victor's words. He felt those words even if he was not an old-timer and would not be for a very long time. Maybe it was because he felt this is his second life, surviving and marrying Vicky. Then he read a report on meteoric threats across all the galaxies in the sphere. The Norsets devoted a large computer system that integrated with all the hop ships and probes deployed across the galaxies to attempt to plot meteor trajectories for several billion meteors. The Nova started the project since it impacted a lot of galaxies in the affected areas. They replotted the positions and updated their map of the cosmos. They put a highlight on a large meteor that will cross Layla's planet, and a slight shift in space warping along its journey will send the meteor directly into Layla's planet. They mentioned that the planet's magnetic field may not be strong enough to deflect the meteor given a possible direct hit its trajectory can take. The report pointed out that if the meteor does not crash into Layla's planet, it will surely hit a moon in another solar system in another galaxy. This may displace the moon and cause an uneven distribution of gravitational field across the solar system and may destabilize the solar orbits of 3 planets. Andrew looked for the time when the meteor will hit, and he found it mentioned only once. It will be near Layla's planet in a little over 3 months. Olive, please take note of this meteor report and remind me of any development. I am sure the Max will want to deal with this 3 months before, so just make sure we, I mean you, are constantly updated on this. Andrew found a council report on the Nitin species. He realized then that the Mac Council felt the pain of their distant cousins. While humans would let other humans solve their own internal issues, the council felt that nobody should just be eaten for food, especially humans or Macs. The report did not recommend any course of action but simply stated their misgivings. Their discussions were heated and did not end in a resolution. Andrew felt where they were heading and kept a mental note of it. Then he found Vicky's name. It was her report on the Earth Scientist Training Program. It mentioned that the first 6-month program has been a success and a second 6-month advanced program will be undertaken by the Earth scientists. A new batch of scientists to undergo a reprogrammed training course was underway. Based on his experience, he was so sure Vicky had the worst experience starting the training program, like preaching to the preacher how to preach. He realized Vicky was and always has been humble in her ways and kind to those who do not understand, even if they were rude and offensive to her. The report described the various fields of study in the first program, the changes and improvement to the first that the next batch will experience, and the advanced program that the first batch will go through. Andrew did not even read the long words, but their first 2 syllables sounded good. Sometimes he cannot reconcile how Vicky can understand these things and how she looks at him. He thought that Vicky would simply do the things she does to him and he would just sit back and let her. He suddenly realized that Vicky has been doing this to him since high school, when he realized all the lunch food he ate with her in one way or another had Vicky's hand in them. Then the places they went to had Vicky's thoughts, more like decisions really, in them as well. Andrew thought, it's okay, he likes it anyway, and made it a conscious decision to continue doing so. A report folder marked Promotions caught his eye. He opened the hologram version of the report. The hologram screen report showed that a lot, if not all, of his commanders were promoted in the field by the president. Harold spoke of their accomplishments, some with more detail than in others. And his people did not even know. Andrew thought it would have been nice to know these things. But everybody were simply too much into the things they were doing, it consumes them even in their sleep. He found out Roger and Ellie were promoted. Captain Jackson, Captain Ono, and more than a dozen Marine LTS and Caps were promoted. Most of the original GX members were promoted except for those with a rank of Colonel and General. He realized that the President and Harold were really keeping tabs on their activities. That they were looking after their psychological motivation as well. Ellie beamed in front of Andrew. Busy reading, sir? Andrew was roused. I see here that you were promoted to full colonel. Congratulations, Ellie, for all your contributions. They should make you a general. But then you're not even 30 yet, or are you? Ellie did not answer the age question and said, I investigated whether my dad had a hand in the promotion and I felt comfortable that he did not, so it's fine with me. The way I see it, sir, is that when we free more than 100 million Talonauts from the octopus or able to send the other aliens home to their planets, those in themselves were the best rewards. It does not hurt that you also become famous. But then none of the Neanderthals knew about what we did. You're right, Ellie. Ellie started, I just had a dream. Yes, I was sleeping most of the time today and I dreamed about Olive doing some gardening work. I specifically saw her cut some rose stalks and getting barbed by the thorns. When I woke up I saw her walking out and opening the door as she went. Then I woke up again. So you woke up twice? No, sir, the point is that she had to open the door to get out of my room in my dream of waking up from a dream. I am getting lost, Ellie. You were dreaming that you woke up from a dream seeing Olive walk out the door. Yes, exactly. Not that I really understand what exactly you think I understand. Maybe you should start from the very start. Ellie thought for a while. I get it why you don't get it. You were focused on the dream, not on my dreaming. Anyway, the point I think of my dream was that I saw Olive cut a rose stem with scissors, get barbed by a thorn, open a door to get out, and I woke up in my dream. I will not pretend to get it. Sir, Olive was real, not a hologram. And? Would it be better if your Olive is real rather than a hologram? Andrew thought for a while. Olive, what do you think? Olive appeared and, I think it would have very specific advantages. Ellie senses she should explain some more. It started when I read the Mac Council discussions on the knit tins, which was tense to say the least. Then I fell asleep and that's when my dream occurred. I read the knit tin report as well and did not see Olive there. I did not even have an Olive then. Olive stood there and looked at Ellie. What did the round eyes had that we don't? Ellie asked. She looked at Olive. Olive answered, there are thousands, Ellie. I do not understand where your question is going. They had androids. But Olive is much better than an android. Thank you, Andrew. For two very smart people whose work have an incredibly profound effect on the galaxies, you two are incredibly dense. Sir. Thank you, Ellie. An android for Olive would simply be a body she can use from time to time. It's not really her but her chosen medium. Sometimes she appears as a hologram, sometimes she simply talks to us in our implants, sometimes she's an android. I get it now. Me too, Andrew. And I think Ellie has a very good point. When I woke up I remembered my discussion with some scientists when we were dissecting the Triggers robots. I remember that at that time we all agreed we could make much better robots than what the Trigger had. Then we had that poison gas problem and Tonin specifically said we should build robots. Then the Nitin report came along and I realized Olive and all the other ships' AI can have a physical form if they so chooses. I can help you build my physical self, Ellie. Yes, of course, Olive. I believe that the best androids would be those involving ship AIs because the thinking is done somewhere else and only ship AIs are large enough to think on their own. The robot now becomes a physical movement delivery system. So when the ship AI leaves it, it simply stops. How many androids can Olive work with? He looked at Ellie then at Olive. It depends on the function, Andrew. Complex requirements will mean less number of androids that I can work with. As a hologram I appear to the crew anywhere all the time with a lot of crew members at the same time. A physical android body simply requires a little bit more work for me to make it work. The difference really is a small increment because a hologram requires some effort to produce as well and an android does require a little bit more effort compared to running a hologram. The key is to make these androids ship AI friendly. We basically build them for our ships to control in the easiest and most efficient way possible. How soon can you build an android for Olive? In a few days, maybe 4 days. I thought you would take longer. All the knowledge is already there. Olive, how long do you need to come out with a design concept? 3 minutes. See, then we refine the concept. Build the parts using our formulators and have the Norsets program the communications interface with our ship's AI and that's it. Will the android look like Olive? Of course. We can make it look like anything you like or Olive likes. We can even make it look like you. Sir. I am used to how Olive looks like. Anyway, I will go now and work on this. Ellie beamed out. Sometimes it's hard to understand her, Olive. She got me there, Andrew. Andrew looked at Olive and realized Ellie must be smarter than Olive. Or that Olive's imagination must be developed. The next day Roger beams in. Iruge? Full Colonel Castro. Andrew shouted his greeting. Thank you, sir. Anyway, I was talking to Ellie and she was working on an android she said was for our ship AI. And you know me, it got me thinking. Wait. Let me guess. An android contest at the festival. Exactly what I thought. I think it's really strange that you can think that I think of these things this way. I'd say it's eerie. It could be a contest between ships' AI androids. And you know how our ships learn, this would be the best way. Anyway, the contest will show off several things. 1 is that these androids can fight. 2 they can move well and 3 we or our ships can operate them well and learn from them. The ships would have some latitude in their designs and programming so we would know what will work out best. The next level is special android teams to infiltrate under extremely hazardous situations. Yes, exactly. And these situations may be cases wherein there is no way for a human or any other species to risk doing the tasks or cannot do the task because it needs superhuman strength. Olive, is there a way for us to introduce the android contest to the festival activities? You have to be more specific on the contest. Yes. There would be swimming, running, hazardous situations, wrestling, archery, shooting, climbing, and whatever else you can think of. Yes, the festival facilities can accommodate them. Olive, can you tell Ellie to come over please? Eric and Ellie beams in. Olive noted, they were together talking in Ellie's lab. Ellie, Eric, we were talking about an android contest. Say per ship. Andrew started. I understand. We can let the ships in on the basic concept then have them create it themselves. But that could be a lot of androids because we have a lot of ships. We should limit the number by limiting the number of participating teams. Say we have 5 teams, say by color, red, yellow, blue, green, or white. Each team would have several android team members. Each android may be designed for specific contests. We were thinking like swimming, running, wrestling, hazardous situations, shooting, archery, crawling and whatever else you can think of. Roger added. Eric agreed, what will result then would be certain androids were designed for certain contests. I think that one contest rule is that the android should look like the ship AI it is controlled by. So an android cannot look like something else specifically designed for the contest. They should look like the human form AI we currently have. So I will see Olive fighting Tom or Kristen. No gender separación. Andrew asked. Ellie answered, our AI appear with gender but they really don't. Roger complained, but Ellie would have the best android because she built them. That would be unfair. Ellie countered, we all have a basic design and I can cut up my scientists into groups and they can work for your different ships. They could be spies. Eric said. Andrew opined, no, I think each ship should be free to recruit its own science teams from anywhere in the galaxies. Roger, draw up the contest rules as we have discussed here and we should do our own recruiting. I will work with Ellie and her team. Can I team up with you? Not that I am lazy or anything. Eric said. I guess we can team up together. Ellie said, and she just realized two top generals will not lift a finger to work on the androids. Her chances of winning suddenly went into a nosedive. She feels that the two generals' contribution would be in strategy and concepts. I will look for my own team members. I will team up with Linda and Gantley. We will get the top and key scientists. Roger said. Andrew smiled and, see, now we're getting there. Tell Tonin he can team up with Bhaskar and the Talonauts. Tonin would probably get their top Norset scientists. We can have Billy form his own team with his cousin Tony, the Max and Bofangs. Roger said. That's only 4 teams. We can send word out for a rogue team from any of the species to form the last team. Ellie said. Good idea. Okay Roger, send the word out. They all beamed out, leaving Andrew and Olive at the bridge.